Mr. Mad here, and today we've got another basics video for Necromunda Underhive Wars. This time we're talking about map control, movement, and area denial. Now in this video I want to cover the basics of map control and area denial. I also want to talk quickly about each class, why map control is important to that class, and what that class kind of brings to the table in terms of map control. Also want to talk about some of the more subtle techniques that you can use for map control and area denial, and then at the end just talk about a few different maps and things that you can do on those particular maps. Although movement is a pretty basic concept in Necromunda, it is a very complicated topic actually, with a lot of different factors that tie into it. So I'll try and move through things pretty quickly, but just sort of still try to be pretty comprehensive and cover most of the relevant stuff. If you're interested in my other basics guides for Necromunda, or my build guides for Necromunda, or walkthroughs for Warhammer 2, please check out my channel and subscribe if you want to be notified about future videos. Perhaps more than any other game I've ever played, Necromunda does a fantastic job of tying in the movement mechanics and the ability to level change into the basic combat mechanics. Perhaps even more important than your character's ability to do raw damage is your character's ability to get to the right position to be able to inflict that damage, or to be able to move to the correct position to be able to mitigate the enemy's damage. So that's pretty much what this video is all about. The ability to control the map, to bypass and move through the map, and the ability to sort of impede or sabotage the enemy's ability to move around the map. At its most basic, movement in Necromunda Underhive Wars is divided into sort of two aspects. Now, one of them is your movement points. Now, that's denoted by the MP in the bottom left of your screen here. You can see this character has 50 movement points to spend this turn, out of a possible maximum of 60 that you can have if you save up some movement and don't use all of it. Now, you can see currently I've used 11 movement points, so that means I've got 50 minus 11, so I've got 39 movement points remaining. Now, if I move further away from my start position, you can see that the movement points go down more. I use up more of it. And that's counted in concentric rings from your start position. So just there is where my movement was last confirmed at the start of my turn. And if you hold down control, you can see concentric rings showing how many meters away from your start point where your movement was last confirmed. So that's an important point about movement. Every time you take an action, it confirms your movement up until that point. So I can move all the way up here, uses 21, 22 movement points, then I can move all the way back and refund all that movement. My movement's not confirmed until I take an action that uses action points, or if I get an involuntary interaction with the environment, like I get shot by Overwatch, or I trigger a trap or something like that. Basically, any action that I take, or an action that happens against my character, will confirm my movement up until that point, and it'll lock in any movement points that have been spent at that point. So that's the first aspect of movement, is using movement points to just traverse the environment by running, basically. Then the other aspect of it is using action points to interact with the environment in certain ways. So if we go to the edge of the level that I'm on and there's something below me, the contextual menu will bring up that option to jump. So I can press F and then jump down to that lower area. If there's a zip line, then I can move next to the zip line. It'll bring up that contextual menu that you can press F and then use zip line to travel to the other side. There's also other objects in the environment. Some maps will have elevators in them. This elevator goes all the way down to the bottom floor, all the way up to the top. You press call elevator, and next to one of these control panels, the elevator comes up, and then you move next to the control panel in the elevator, and then you can select which floor that you want to go to. Another thing to note is that your movement is only calculated on the x-axis, not on the y-axis. So if, for example, you go here, that takes 5 movement, and then I go over here, I move a few meters, go back to the other side, and it's only 7 movement. It's only counting it as the crow flies directly from this point in concentric rings away from the starting position. On the map, there'll be bridges, like this makeshift bridge here that allows you to walk across to the other side. But note this makeshift bridge is actually destructible, so it can be destroyed and then you won't have access to that other side. There's a makeshift bridge. These zip lines allow you to travel from that area to that area using action points, and you can use the jump skill to jump from a higher position down to a lower elevation. There are also elevators that you can use to travel up and down, whereas normally jump only allows you to travel downwards. If you're near a low object like this, you can get the option to vault over it. Again, it uses action points and it'll put you in a position on the other side. If it's a larger object like this, then you won't be able to vault through it. That'll just block movement entirely and also block line of sight, obviously. The lane mechanic is one class that can have a big impact on movement around the map. One of the skills that they have access to is the barricade skill seen here. That allows you to place different shaped barricades around at different locations on the map in order to impede the enemy's movement and also to block line of sight. So if we place a barricade here, you'll see now that completely stops our character from being able to walk around it. And also if there was an enemy sort of on the far side there, that would basically block line of sight from them from here. Or if we were here, that would partially impair their line of sight to make it harder for them to shoot us. So that's one of the main things that is really unique to lane mechanic. They're the only ones that can sort of create their own terrain and create these barriers. The other thing that a lane mechanic can do is they can repair these damaged zip lines. This zip line's disabled. If you look at the map, there's just a dotted line indicating that the zip line's not actually functional. But a lane mechanic can go tinker, and then now that zip line's enabled again, and they can use that zip line just like a normal zip line. The heavy doesn't have any particular skills that allow him to move further or to sort of block enemy movement. However, he does have the unique ability to use these heavy weapons. Heavy weapons have the ability to destroy barricades that lane mechanics can create more easily than other units. And they can also destroy these makeshift bridges more efficiently than other characters as well. You can see him here firing on this bridge. He easily destroys that bridge with one shot. Whereas, for a normal conventional weapon, it would take much more damage to be able to do it. The other thing that heavies are good for is creating zones. So they have these auras. You can use a weapon check that gives extra action points to all of his friendlies within that aura, or he can use a safeguard, which makes it cost double the amount to shoot at any of his friends within that aura, not including himself. So it doesn't make it any more easier or more difficult to get into the area, but it creates a zone that is that has a particular property that you may want to either get into or get out of. So these auras, when you put that onto one of your friendly characters, that'll give them various buffs, and so that creates an area that might be desirable for you to put your characters within. Saboteurs have a few interesting skills that can affect movement. One of them is their ability to sabotage. So this zip line, the lane mechanic just fixed previously. The saboteur can come here and use their sabotage skill, and then that just completely disables that zip line, so denying anyone to use that for movement. Another ability that they can take is the homemade nade, which just gives them a grenade they can throw, and that grenade does a very large amount of damage to destructible elements like barricades and bridges, so they can take those out much easier than other characters, just like a single shot, whereas if you shot that barricade with a pistol or a rifle, it would take quite a while to be able to destroy it. Saboteurs got a special ability where they can actually sabotage elevators so that they won't travel to the floor that you want them to travel to. So if we do sabotage on this elevator, and now this elevator is now sabotaged. So if we try and choose what floor we want to go to, choose floor, so choose floor 10. Yep, and instead of going to floor 10, it took us down to floor 5. Now the Saboteur has a few other skills that can be really good at controlling movement. One of them is the dizzying trap. Now each house has their own trap, The dizzying trap is the Goliath version. You'll place it down like this in a certain area, and then any character that moves within the larger AoE around that object will trigger the dizzying trap. If we go into the dizzying trap, boom, that confirms our movement at this point. So now we can't refund that movement. So how normally you can sort of move around things, but if you put the trap sort of at the corner of something where they're going to move around it, then that will, rather than be able to run around an object and then get their movement refunded when they get back to close to their original starting point, as soon as they hit the dizzying trap, in addition to the other dizzying traps, other really good properties, it will then pin their movement at that point, so they won't be able to refund their movement. Dizzying trap in particular is really good at inhibiting movement because of the properties of the debuff that it gives you. So dizzying trap makes you unable to jump, vault, disengage, kneel, death from above, or carry. So in terms of movement, you can't jump down off of anything. You're just stuck on the level that you're on. You can't vault over low objects like you normally can, and you can't kneel, so you can't take cover as easily behind things, and you can't. And kneeling gives you protection from pinning. Normally, if you get shot while you're standing up, you'll get pinned and you'll lose 10 of your movement points for next turn. So when you kneel, that makes you safe from that, but the dizzying trap will remove your ability to kneel as well. Now, in terms of movement and map control, the Deadeye's got one really unique ability that no other character's got, and that's their signature skill, Ascension. So using this, they can get to just anywhere on the map. There's no place on a map that another character can get to that a Deadeye can't get to. So we look at this map for a second. This platform here is completely inaccessible. There's no zip lines that can be repaired to it. There's no elevator. There's no ramps. There's no bridges. There's no nothing. There's no physical way that you can get up there unless you're a Deadeye, in which case you can just use this Ascension skill or give you a number of different targets of places where you can zip line to, and yeah, you can travel over there. Now, the other aspect of the Ascension is it actually allows you to use your action points, because Ascension uses action points, not movement points, to traverse more of the map than you normally would be able to. So that ring, that grey ring on the ground there, shows the limit of our movement points. If we were to just move on flat ground, that's how far we can run. You can see it goes to a little bit over halfway there. Now, if we use our Ascension and we do it, just above us here, then we won't get much x-axis movement. But if we use the Ascension at its maximum range over there, and then we look at the map, and now we look at the map, you'll see the movement extends right over to the far side of the map, because we've started off here, and now we can only move about halfway through the map, and then we traverse without using any movement points to over halfway through the map, and then now we can move all the way to the far edge with our remaining movement if we wanted to. So the Ascension ability, it lets you change levels and go up, which other characters can only jump down, which is one unique ability, and also it just gives you a lot more ability to traverse across the terrain as well, because you can use your Ascension to sort of ascend at an angle instead of straight up. Also, if an enemy team is trying to deny you access to an area by destroying a bridge or by disabling a zipline or an elevator or something like that, and you really need to get up to that area, the Deadeye is the one character that's going to always be able to get up there. Brawlers don't have any particularly advantage in terms of moving around the map, but they're one of the reasons why you want to control map movement. Now, a Goliath brawler in particular are extremely deadly in melee combat. They don't have they just have the normal jump, but they also have this death from above jump that allows them to stun everything within a radius if they can get above you and jump down on top of you. You really want to keep brawlers away from your ranged units, because once they get into melee combat, they're extremely powerful. Okay, to quickly recap, lane mechanics can build barriers to block off areas, and they can also repair disabled zip lines that saboteurs have disabled to aid with movement. Heavies can destroy bridges and barricades with their heavy weapons more easily than other characters, and they can also use their auras to create particular zones or areas that you might want to get into or get out of. Saboteurs can set traps, which will confirm the movement of anyone that moves into them. And they can also sabotage zip lines and elevators. And they also have the grenade ability to destroy bridges and barricades more easily. Deadeyes have an ascension ability that allows them to pretty much bypass any obstacles on the battlefield and move wherever they want. So basically none of those other things apply to them. They can bypass everything with their ascension. And brawlers don't have any special movement, but brawlers are the reason why you want to control movement, because you don't want to let those brawlers anywhere near your guys. Okay, so now we've covered all the basics. I just wanted to get into some of the more subtle, I guess, and sophisticated aspects of movement and map control, and also just talk about some specifics about particular maps. One thing that's really important to understand is the idea of confirming movement. So you've got your movement points, as I mentioned at the start, and you can move around and refund those points. You can run them all the way back to the start and refund them all until you've confirmed the movement by taking an action or by triggering an attack from the enemy. So a trap is an example of how your movement can be confirmed, or Overwatch, if you get hit by an Overwatch shot. Also, if you trigger an enemy ambush, your movement can be confirmed. Of course, you can also confirm your own movement by just taking any action. So just for an example, to use this particular map as an example, we just kneel down to confirm our movement here. And then you can see on the map now the concentric rings showing our maximum movement radiate out from this particular point here. So the movement that I've got left is 33 meters. So it's actually 33 meters as the crow flies from this point to this point. But you can clearly see that running this way and then back this way is a lot further than the 33 meters. So as long as nothing impedes me or confirms me on my movement on this path, then I'll be able to move right to the maximum of my 33 meters. But if I was playing the defensive player and I'm over here and I want to stop that character from getting to me, then I want to either set a trap maybe here, so they're going to get there and that's going to confirm their movement there, and then they're going to have a new point here and they're going to have to move from that point. They might not be able to make it this far, and they might only be able to make it sort of this far or something if their movement gets confirmed over here. Similarly, if you're setting up your Overwatch shots, this isn't a particularly good example, but just say I had a character here and I put them in Overwatch, then as soon as this character moves, they would instantly get hit by the Overwatch, so their movement would get confirmed there. So it wouldn't really make much difference. Their sort of maximum distance from there would be kind of the same. But if I move this character to over here, say, and the character's maximum range of their weapon, only reached to here, then that would mean that when they got to there, their movement would be confirmed. So then if the character had to follow this path and go back this way, then their movement would be confirmed there, and then they wouldn't have as much. They'd only be able to make it to here, say. They wouldn't be able to make it all the way to here. So it's important to understand that idea of confirming the enemy's movement, and how you can use your ability to confirm their movement involuntarily, basically, as a defense mechanism, if you want to control their movement to keep them away from you. Obviously there's the more basic ways we discussed earlier, where you can just destroy the bridge, or you can sabotage zip lines so they physically can't get there. But if those options aren't available to you, or in addition to those, you've also got these more subtle methods of kind of like confirming their movement involuntarily. You can also use ambush to do it as well. Perhaps I had some weak ranged units lined up here and they've got a bunch of brawlers over there. I might have a brawler here. I can move my brawler up to here and put them in ambush here. And that way, if this character comes up here, they're going to get intercepted by my brawler who's going to ambush them. And that's going to confirm their movement at this point. They'll still have to disengage from my brawler if they want to keep going and attack my other units. But their movement will be confirmed here where our brawler made contact with them. So those are just three ways you can confirm the enemy's movement: by a trap, with Overwatch shot, or with an ambush. Just a quick note as well. The sort of area of effect kind of damage area sort of effects like Roaring Forge and stuff like that, they don't confirm movement. So if you move through the Roaring Forge, you'll take damage. You can see the damage numbers coming up there. But you see my movement point is still confirmed where it was before. It doesn't, unlike a trap, if it's like a set area type of thing like that, or like a cryofog or a sabotage control panel, if you move through the area of those things, it doesn't actually confirm your movement. So you can still recharge your movement, go back to your original point, get the full movement back again. So only traps, sabotage, and Overwatch. Or there may be other things, but those are the three I can think of off the top of my head. And you can use all of those to confirm the enemy's movement involuntarily on their turn. Now, Overwatch is particularly good because it'll confirm their movement, just like a trap will. However, Overwatch will always pin them as well. So and when they're moving, if they get hit by an Overwatch shot, they'll lose 10 movement, and it'll be called pinning. Whereas if you hit a trap, it confirms your movement at that point, but it doesn't give you that additional movement penalty of your pinning. So if we look at this example again, if this character runs along here, they get hit by Overwatch there, then not only have they, instead of being able to measure their movement, but as the crow flies across here, they have to measure it to here, pin, confirm there, and then measure it back this way. But also they've lost, instead of making it to here, they've actually lost 10 meters, so they're only going to make it to here. So Overwatch is even better than traps in terms of movement, but you have to measure the range to where you want them to be confirmed. Now, another thing you can use to confirm the enemy movement on their turn involuntarily, as I mentioned, is ambushing. So we've got one of my tanks here, and he's standing on this walkway. Now, if I wanted to stop the enemy getting up to this higher ground here, and they're down here, this character, he can't body block that whole walkway by himself, but if I put him into ambush mode, he'll intercept anyone that is within range of his ambush, and anyone coming up here, he'll intercept them. If you press 1 for your offensive abilities, this one's the ambush icon. You can see the green ring there. He's covering this whole area, so anyone who comes within that area, they're going to get ambushed by him if they come while he's got this ambush stance set up. And what that'll do is that'll force them into combat with me. They'll be engaged, and then if they want to keep moving, they'll have to use a contextual skill called disengage, which costs 10 action points and 15 movement points. So ambush is quite good because not only does it confirm their movement, so as soon as I make contact with the enemy, their movement will be confirmed on that point. That'll be a new start position for their movement if they want to move. But as well as that, they'll have taken a 15 movement point penalty because they'll have to disengage from me to be able to keep moving. Because you can't freely move out of melee combat. You have to disengage from it. So that's a sort of defensive use of ambush. You can set up an area, you can set up a character, and they'll basically control a zone with their ambush. And if the enemy will know that if they move into that zone, then they're going to get ambushed, which is going to confirm their movement, and it's going to engage them in melee combat, which will force them to have to disengage and waste more action points and movement points. As well as using ambush defensively to control a zone, you can also use your ambush sort of offensively as well. So if you see this character here, he obviously doesn't want to be in combat with my brawler, who's a melee specialist. So he's gonna, if I engage him in melee. If I engage him in melee, I'm going to kill him. But if I was going to engage him in melee with a weaker character that couldn't necessarily kill him this turn, and I wanted to just hold him there and restrict his movement, basically, as soon as I engage with him, as soon as I go in here and press my offensive actions and do a strike, then he's going to be engaged in combat, which is going to force him to disengage, like he did before, which is going to cost 10 action points and 15 movement points. But what we can do is, before we actually engage with him, we can put an ambush on. And so put this ambush on, and then we go into this character, and then we engage by hitting him with a weapon attack, and then now he's engaged, so he has to spend 15 movement points and 10 action points to disengage. But as soon as he tries to move away, he's going to trigger my ambush, which will attack him, which will engage him again in melee combat and force him to use another 10 action points and another 15 movement points to disengage again. And in this case, I've actually stunned the character as well, and it costs 20 action points to free yourself from a stun. So it's going to be an additional 20 action points that he's going to lose, and potentially when the ambush triggers on his turn, he could get stunned again. So, so this poor character, is going to basically next turn potentially, if all of that happens, he's got the 20 that he needs to clear for the stun, the 10 action points to disengage. Then when he gets ambushed again, there's going to be another 10 action points to disengage again, so 40 action points gone. If he gets stunned, that's 60 action points, which is more than he's likely to even have. And in addition to that, he's going to lose 30 movement points from having to disengage twice. So it basically kind of neuters that character completely, if you don't actually kill him with your attacks. Another thing that you can use that quite effectively in a lot of situations is body blocking. So the characters have a green ring around them that denotes the space that this character takes up, and those green rings are kind of like inviolable. Like you can't move even a millimeter into an enemy's green ring. So you can like these two characters have completely blocked this enemy character into this corner there. There's no way they can get out, even though there's a bit of a gap here. You can't overlap at all, so they can't get out there. Interestingly though, edges of walkways and stuff like that, you can overlap them. So if this little post wasn't here, this character could probably slip out this way, because even they could just kind of walk along the very edge there and get out that way. But anyway, so you can actually body block characters in engage, and then they won't be able to get out of there anyway. They'll just be stuck in that little area there. So basically, they've got no other choice than to attack me. So that's one way of using body blocking. Another thing you can do with body blocking is to physically block line of sight. So if one of your characters is quite weak, maybe they've been damaged or something like that, and they're near death, and you have another character that's being activated, and the damaged character, it's not their activation, you've already used them for that turn, so you can't get them out of harm's way. What you can do in some situations is just form a human barricade around them, so that enemy characters can't get to them. So for example, if I wanted to protect, if I wanted to use this character to protect Vantru there, maybe there's an enemy over here and they can kind of see, maybe they're far away, but they can see sort of half of Vantru there. I can physically just block their line of sight by just parking this character in the way. And then, you can see he's quite obscured. If they probably can't get a shot at him at all, and if they can, he's going to have very high ranged evasion just from physically blocking him. So it can be quite useful to have very tanky characters that you can use for that type of utility, and just physically body block. The other thing you can do is block pathways and stuff. So as I said, you can't move even a millimeter into an enemy's. See that? I won't let me move even a millimeter into that. If I park this character, say about there, it doesn't look like I've actually blocked off the area, but because you can't even go 1 millimeter into the enemy's ring, that blocks that area. So you can kind of like space them out. You could put like like 2 or 3 characters could probably block off this whole walkway here if you just kind of space them out a little bit. So body blocking, you can definitely use that in clutch moments sometimes to really good effect. So yeah, that was map control and movement basics. I had planned to do a little bit more about some specific maps, but I feel like the video's already gone on pretty long, and I covered pretty much everything I wanted to say, I think. So hopefully you found that useful. If you're interested in other basics, I've got a few other videos in this series, the basics series. You can check them out on my channel. Also, you can subscribe to the channel if you want to be notified about future videos that I'm making. I'll put a lot of build guides and tutorial sort of stuff for Necromunda, and also Warhammer 2, Total War Warhammer 2. But yeah, I think that's all I got. Thanks, guys.